I have just about everything I need to celebrate the holidays, but I'm cruising for one more must-have item. A Showfield registration for the Ford Nationals. Buy yours before January 3rd and save 20% off the full price. Purchase yours online at CarlisleEvents.com. And Merry Christmas from all of us at the Carlisle Ford Nationals.
Welcome to the 1995 First Annual Carlisle All Ford Nationals. This exciting event brings Ford family cars together from across the years and across the continent. Ford fans flock to this three-day event to share their enthusiasm for the Ford legacy of automotive excellence and innovation. Special indoor invitational shows highlighting Ford's history and outlook to the future, as well as a unique close-up of Ford's contribution to racing, made the fairgrounds at Carlisle the place to be on June 9th, 10th, and 11th of 1995. Classic Mustangs were everywhere. Custom Ford trucks of every shape, size, and design were on display, along with plenty of new products, all here to see and enjoy. Some very special guests here at Carlisle included Ford drag racing legend Dick Brannon, Frank Hershey, designer of the 55 T-Bird, and many other fine automobiles. Larry Shinoda, originator of the Boss Mustang. Sizzling drag racing featuring the new Mustang R models and a celebrity match race with Bruce Larson and Dick Brannon. Tons of local racers were there at the South Mountain drag strip, making it a thrilling night of head-to-head competition as one driver after another goes screaming down the 1/8 mile. Over 80 acres of beautiful fairgrounds, chock full of Ford's fun and excitement. That's what you found at Carlisle, PA. 3 days of activity and entertainment. Even this little fellow can appreciate that. Let's take a walk out to the show field and get a closer look at this beautiful Mustang from the 1970s. This brings back my teenage years. Did you buy the car new?
No. I bought it I come from Virginia.
Uh-huh. How long have you had it now?
3 years.
3 years?
Mm-hmm.
Have you been restoring cars for a long time? Or?
Yes, I've done a couple before, yes.
What was involved in doing this one?
Total restoration. I had everything out, the motor, everything, total restoration. I didn't do the paint, of course, but I had a local body shop do the paint work for me, and basically I put it back together.
Are you here with the club this year, or?
No, by myself.
By yourself? Walking the show field is an adventure in time travel. These beautifully restored classics from the 40s and 50s are truly treasures to behold. But for now, let's talk to the owner of a Ford that better represents modern technology.
Beard.
Ken Beard?
Beard.
Okay, and what do you got here? What can you tell me about?
This is Gurney Eagle 302 with 30 thousandths over. Le Mans crank, 48 IDA Webers, 400 horse. Mark I GT40. CF5 speed. This was the Ferrari Keller. This is the one that Ford built to go after Ferrari when they decided to go into endurance racing. You probably remember that story. That was the race that Ferrari always dominated, but Ford decided to get in on the program, and this was the car that they put together to do it.
And what's your name, sir?
Brian Stoner, Bob.
Brian Stoner? Oh, that's great, Brian. This is a nice little piece you've got back here. Exactly what model is it and what year? And
Thank you. It's a 62 Ford Galaxy 500 four-door. It's not a rare car. It's not a show car. It's a good driver car. Some unique things about it. The original window sticker still on the car, Bob. Still with the car, along with the guarantee and the congratulatory letter from Beasley Ford saying that congratulating the owner to be new Ford owner in '62 when he bought the car. I detailed it up a little bit, Bob, but the car's mostly original. And it drives like a kitten.
And what brings you to Carlisle this time around?
The first Ford Nationals, you can't beat it. Chip and Bill Miller, there really is a God.
I'm Jerry Capizzi from Chicago, Illinois. I grew up in Detroit, and I guess I had the Motown in my blood at an early age. And my father was an executive with the Ford Motor Company, and in fact he was Henry Ford's the first personal attorney and attorney for the Ford Motor Company. So I've got Ford Blue in my veins besides. So when I started collecting cars back in the early 70s, sort of the focus was on Ford Motor Company cars, and all of my collection is FOMOCO. I have Lincolns and Edsels and Mercurys and Thunderbirds and Ford retractables and a number of other cars.
Well, what started you collecting cars anyway? Why cars?
Well, I guess when I was a kid, growing up, the car was the ultimate toy. Everybody, a young boy, worked to ultimately be able to afford a car. And of course, in my opinion, cars back in those days in the 50s were much more distinctive than they are today. And as a result, you could make a statement with the car, I think, much more emphatically then than you could today, particularly with convertibles and all the other things that were done with cars back in those days.
So you think it's gotten a little stagnant over the past couple of years?
I think it's gotten a little stagnant, sure. They're cookie cutter kind of things. They're big cookies and little cookies, but they all are kind of round and don't have much chrome on them.
Outrageous. Well, you've got the best collection of matchboxes I've seen any boy have. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time.
Pleasure being here.
I don't think there's a person who has ever owned a car that doesn't know the name Thunderbird. In 1955, Ford's entry into the world of the sports car made tidal waves. It proved to a generation that an American sports car could be produced with all the class and performance needed to rival any of its European competition. Even alongside its only American competitor, Chevrolet's Corvette. The 55 T-Bird's more elegant design qualities made it an instant classic. This car is the first production model released to the public. It was the fourth car off the line. The first three were reserved for Ford Motor Company's own use. T-Bird number 3 was for a time driven by the head of its design team and our guest today, Mr. Franklin Q. Hershey. It is owned and loved by T-Bird enthusiast Mr. John Baer. This year marks the 40th anniversary of the Thunderbird nameplate. As the design matured, the car grew in size, as this later model demonstrates. Still elegant and powerful, it is no longer a true sports car. Even as the T-Bird slowly left its sports car designation behind, the legacy of its origins have been carried into its new place as a luxury automobile. This 1957 Thunderbird convertible is a mint example of what it was America fell in love with. Cruising the boulevard in this car was sure to turn heads. The open top lent this model a feeling of freedom and love for the open road. Route 66 would never be the same.
I have just about everything I need to celebrate the holidays, but I'm cruising for one more must-have item. Spectator admission tickets for the 2023 Ford Nationals. Buy yours before January 3rd and save 20% off the full price. Purchase yours online at CarlisleEvents.com. And Merry Christmas from all of us at the Carlisle Ford Nationals.
Let's take a few minutes and look history straight in the eye as we get the rare opportunity to speak with the originator of Ford Motor Company's Thunderbird.
I'm Bill Miller, and today we are at the first annual All Ford Nationals of Carlisle Productions. It's June the 10th of 1995, and I have the real pleasure of being here today with Mr. Franklin Q. Hershey, who was the original designer of the 1955 Thunderbird. Mr. Hershey, certainly nice to have you here with us today, sir.
I had good help. I had 3 good men, and we worked like dogs to do it. So the credit doesn't go, I just got the idea, and then we all worked together.
Back into the kind of the beginnings, Mr. Hershey, I guess it's not a trade secret. You were born in 1907
Yeah.
and really enjoyed cars when you were young.
I got run over by a car when I was 2 years old.
Got run over?
Well, I broke my leg, that's all.
Why did you still like him after that?
Well, I was fascinated by him then.
Well, being I'm a Kaiser Frazer fan, and I have a Henry J. And you know the Henry J had that little bump on it, just like the early Cadillac did.
Well, my best friend, one of my best friends, was with them.
With
And
Kaiser
I hired
Frazer.
him. I hired him.
Who was that?
Reese Miller.
Oh, okay.
You know Reese Miller?
I know who he is, sure. From
One of my best and closest friends.
Oh, that's wonderful. Yeah, he was with Kaiser Frazer.
Yes, yeah,
Right.
yeah. Well, he worked for me on the Thunderbird. He did the rear end on the Thunderbird. We had to move it 6 inches out to get golf clubs in there.
Okay.
So we took it down in the paint room, where they were using, and he did the whole rear end.
The most
So we get
important thing was to get
2
the
golf
golf
clubs in there.
in the trunk.
Huh?
The most important thing was to get the golf clubs in the trunk, huh?
Yeah. Well,
That's interesting.
that and so he did the rear end.
Well, when you went to work for Ford, do you remember what year it was? Was it like maybe 52 or 53?
It was 52.
52.
Yeah.
And that's when the preliminary design for the Corvette was out, correct?
Well, a friend of mine called me up one night, and you want to see what we're doing over at Cadillac? I said, yeah. So he showed me the Sport. I mean, this
Cadillac.
not a Cadillac.
Corvette.
Corvette. But gee whiz. So I came back. I came back the next day and told my guys, and then I went out and bought a XK.
Oh, an XK 150.
Yeah, 150.
Jaguar.
Yeah, and we used that. We used that for the whole setup in front here. I said, look, it's great. Everybody likes to sit in it.
Right.
So they all sit in the light. I said, all right, we'll copy that.
Interesting.
Then we built the car around it.
But to knock out a car in less than a year,
Well,
wasn't that a real chore?
somehow I had good men. I didn't do it by myself. I had good men. I had a room that was completely away from everything, and that's what we did it. Nobody knew what we were doing. My boss didn't even know what we were doing.
Is that right?
The guy got hell for it, but he finally came around.
Mr. Hershey, we sure appreciate all your time and everything and your opportunity to be here with us at Carlisle.
Have I bored you to death?
Absolutely not. It's been wonderful for me, and I hope it's been a pleasure for you as well.
Oh, I love to talk about it. You know, it's fun.
Right after the interview, Mr. Hershey graciously autographed Mr. Barr's collector's piece for him, I'm sure adding even more value to a rare and interesting automobile. Mr. Hershey then took time to sign autographs on anything and everything for everybody. There was plenty more in the way of exciting automobiles invited to Building T that day. A 1969 Talladega, Pantera, 1965 Griffith, 1967 Mercury Cyclone, a 1968 Mercury Cougar XR7 GTE, 1971 Torino Convertible, 1961 390 horsepower Ford Starliner, and a 1963 and a half Fairlane Sports Coupe.
My name is Tony Petrino. I come out of Moonachie, New Jersey, and I got this car about a year and a half ago out of California. It was lilac and white. It was pretty, but not the way I visioned the car. It's got factory air, and the interior is similar to an original, and the colors were done my way, including the top, the etchings on the glass, and it is a wonderful car. In fact, I think it's one of the prettiest here. Well, Carlisle I thought was one of the finest places to come to, one of the biggest, and I intend to be here many more times to come, for God spares. It's my second trip to Carlisle, and I think it's fantastic. It is really a magnificent show.
Thanks for telling us about your 1960 Edsel, Tony. This 1954 Mercury was at the show along with other classics.
Good afternoon. I'm Bill Smith from Hershey, Pennsylvania. This is my 1935 Ford. Purchased this car in 1972 and on and off restoration from that time. It just came out of the restoration shop on Tuesday, this past Tuesday. It's a 85 horsepower V8 engine, wire wheels, outside horns, convertible coupe with a rumble seat. Mr. Ford had a lot of fun making this type of an automobile. And of course, those folks that rode in it also had a lot of fun. We're here today at the Carlisle All Ford Show and enjoying the crowd as well as the old cars.
In the spirit of family fun, even the crash test dummies were at the All Ford Nationals. They made the rounds, brightening the children's faces. They led us to the tram that navigates the huge fairgrounds at Carlisle, leading me to think that maybe they're not such dummies after all. Hey, speaking of not being a dummy, who better to help educate you about your car than TV personality, Mr. Pat Goss.
By the way, for those of you who don't already know me, it's Pat Goss. Please, when we get down to asking questions, make it Pat, not Mr. Goss. Now, how do you keep the computer alive and well in your car? It's real easy. Number one, take good care of the battery. Battery's got to be kept clean, the cable's connected properly all the time. Second, you've got to make sure that the battery in the car is in good condition.
As Pat continues illuminating and educating, let's have a look at some of the rows and rows of cars and trucks lined up for judging back in the show field. Classic Edsel. Full-size Fords of the 50s and the 60s. Thunderbirds, old and new. The Mercury Cyclone spoiler and Ford Talladega Registry members have their cars on display. Mustangs. Ford trucks. Fairlanes. Torinos, Cougars, Falcons, and more of the famous Mustangs, stock and modified. Fun is a word for the whole family here at the Carlisle All Ford National.
I'm Dr. Richard Schatz, the editor of the Thunderbird Script magazine, the new highly exciting magazine for the newest and most highly exciting club in the world, the International Thunderbird Club, ITC. We are the only organization in the international spectrum that handles and embraces all Thunderbirds 1955 to present. We have a partial array of cars here from this whole weekend. Some folks have left for their long trip home. Many of the individuals drive their cars, and some of those are still here. We've got some really fine cars at which to look right now, and we'd like to show you them and some of their exciting attributes. Some of them are extremely unusual, and we could say unique. Don't forget, Thunderbird means unique in all the world. Shall we go?
Yes.
Okay, let's go. Here's an automobile right here. Actually, it belongs to my wife. This car just turned 26,700 miles on this trip here. It's all original, paint, interior. All original except certainly new tires, and I believe we did have to put a new fuel pump on it. Other than that, not. It's a 1960 hardtop. The last of the series of this particular body style. Another of these automobiles, right next to us, belongs to a gentleman who drove some 800 miles to get here. This is also a 1960, a convertible, and as you can see, this has a fully automatic top retract, top erect mechanism. The operator simply sits in the driver's position and comfortably enjoys the up and down, watch your sun visor, the other one, the up and down mechanism as it faultlessly, doesn't it? Faultlessly operates almost every time. And now the tray retracts to hide because this top has its own retraction tray built into itself. Therefore, when the top is retracted into the trunk, that separate mechanism takes over. And now it's securely locked in place, and a nice job. And it was faultless, wasn't it? Thank you. Next to it, we have some folks that came from Western Ontario with a 59 Thunderbird. What happens here, this 59, even though it has the same body style as the 60, is only semi-automatic. The trunk mechanism in this automobile is manually taken back, followed by the manual raising, which the owner, Mr. Bob Kravitz, will show you, is put into place. We can truly say that this is faultless because there's no automation to it. The top is now electrically, hydraulically operated by a little switch in the side of the trunk. That's the only hydroelectric portion of this mechanism. 58 and 59 Thunderbird, the first to employ any of this automation, used the semi-automatic situation. Roxy, fix your... And we went into the 60, which we just showed you a bit ago, which is fully automatic. This automobile, fully restored, has driven here from Emeryville, Ontario, which is out near Detroit, Michigan. And a nice car that it is. This is the third time we've seen this car at an Eastern show. These folks drive to all shows. See you later, and thanks. This is Dr. Richard Schatz helping out. Glad to have a good time. Bye-bye.
What do you got? What do you need? Where'd you find it? I found it at Carlisle. Plainly the largest, most diversified flea market for automotive stuff I've ever seen. If you can't find it here, well, good luck. You're gonna need it. Hey, how about lunch? Centrally located is Carlisle's Food Court, a fine spot for fine food. Coming up, a peek at the high-tech end of motoring.
Process for improving surface finish and airflow through manifolds and heads. And we do that by extruding an abrasive-laden media back and forth over the surfaces that we're going to abrade. So all I'm going to do for this demonstration is place this exhaust port over the hole, clamp up on it, and extrude the media out. Now, if you want to step up here and take a look, I'll stop it here for a minute. You can see how the media is forming the shape that's presented to it, and how that abrasive is brought right out to the surface.
Let's tiptoe around these two and go see Mr. Larry Shinoda.
Hi, I'm Kelly Altland, the Director of Public Relations for Carlisle Productions. Ford's pony cars are legendary, and no exception are the Boss Mustangs. One name synonymous with the Boss Mustang is Larry Shinoda, and Carlisle Productions is excited to have Larry Shinoda join us at the Carlisle All Ford Nationals. Larry, I want to talk a little bit today about the past, present, and future. How did you come to Ford Motor Company?
Well, I came to Ford Motor Company in January of 1955. They hired me out in Art Center College of Design in Los Angeles in late 1954, and I started work on, I believe it was January 5th. I worked at Ford a year, and then I left and I went to Studebaker Packard. I was there about 7 months. We finished up some clay models of the all-new Clipper, and when they went to the tool shops wanted cash first, so the handwriting was on the wall. And the next thing was I spent about 3 months going auto racing, and when I came back, I went and interviewed for a job at General Motors. And during that auto racing, the teams I worked on, we managed to win the Indianapolis 500 with Pat Flaherty driving. I designed the body shapes on the car and worked on the crew, so it helped me get a job at General Motors.
After your time at General Motors, then, I understand that you came back to Ford Motor Company, and that's when really you started working on the bosses.
Yes, right. When Bunky Knudsen went to Ford, he asked me to come with him. He went as a president, and I started about 2.5, 3 months later, and the first project was, the Boss 302 and the Boss 429.
Tell us a little bit about the 302 and the 429. Were they under design when you first got there, and did you change things, or was this original from the start back with Ford?
The cars were basically original. There was a lot of superfluous chrome and other things, and they were going to call the Boss 302 was going to be called the SR2 for sedan category 2 racing. And there had already been a Corvette SR2, so I thought that was, didn't make any sense. So I campaigned for the name Boss, and there's a little story I can tell you about that.
I'd be interested in hearing that.
Well, I made pins that said "Think Boss." I had banners. We did up cars and graphics, Boss on the graphics, and most people at Ford couldn't understand it or didn't want to. And I pushed the issue to the point that they finally had the names all on a sheet, and the fellow that handled the itineraries for Mr. Ford, they were called blue letter meetings. Any car at the Ford Motor Company, the name had to be approved by Mr. Ford. So the meeting was going to be on a Monday, and Saturday, December 7th, I sent a telegram to this Mr. Goyer saying, "Dear Chalmers, don't look up towards the sun. You might be hit by a flying object." And it was signed, it said, "Think Boss," and was signed The Rising Sun. He got so upset that he went all the way over from Dearborn to Mr. Ford's house in Grosse Pointe and banged on the door, and his son Edsel was home for Christmas. Opened the door and invited him in, and when he saw Mr. Ford, he says, "Look at this SOB sent me this telegram." And he said, "Well, which SOB?" And he said, "Well, the kid that Knudsen brought here." And he handed him the telegram, and Mr. Ford put his glasses on and looked at it, and he says, "That's pretty good. That's kind of like the name on the building, the name Boss."
Right.
So he poured him a coffee royale, and they had their coffee, and he sent him home. Come Monday morning, everybody was up in the main, the executive conference room, and Mr. Ford came in, and he looked at the letter, and he says, "Chalmers, where's that name?" And this Chalmers Goyer says, "I didn't think it was appropriate, Mr. Ford." Mr. Ford took his pen, wrote in Boss 302, and initialed it, and that was it.
And the name has stuck ever since. Where
Right.
the name Boss? Why Boss? You campaigned for Boss, but where did you come up with that?
Well, there was a drag racing team, Ronnie Sox and Buddy Martin, and they used to run a Plymouth, and it was called, the first one was Old Boss, and then it was Little Boss. But, all the kids would talk about something that was really great as Boss.
Okay.
So it made, it made good sense to call the car Boss rather than SR2.
So you said you started when you were a kid. How long were you with Ford Motor Company?
I was with Ford for a year, and then when I was gone for 14 years, and I came back at a much higher level, and I was there about 17 months.
17 months. And in that 17 months is when you did all of your Boss?
Did the Boss, we did the Talladega, all the race car programs, all the show cars. We did the Mercury, the Cougar Eliminators, the Cyclone spoilers, the Cyclone spoiler 2s, the King Cobra. In fact, I noticed the King Cobra over in the T building.
On display.
Right, and so we had a lot of fun. We did a whole lot of work. In fact, we even did the Maverick Grabber, and I was also involved in doing the Pinto.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about the present. What are you doing now?
Well, when I saw the '94 Mustang, I felt it needed a little bit of help. So I thought, well, why not say the Boss is back and do a new Boss? And so these graphics are a little bit like the '70 Boss Mustang, and I thought it added some excitement to the car.
How are they alike? What's similar from the 70 to the design package that you put together now?
Well, the 70 had stripes running down the hood, and then it had kind of a segmented stripe running down over the fenders and back along the rocker. In this case, we have the big graphic on the hood. We have the fender and the door graphic, and I did a different rear spoiler, one that sits down on the deck that I think looks better than the GT spoiler. And we've also come up with a new front chin spoiler. And we use the wheel lip moldings that is homologated for the cars, Mustangs going to Japan.
Okay.
They look nice.
And someone can purchase the Boss graphics package that's as an aftermarket product, is that correct?
Yes, they can, right. In fact, all the parts are available. And we just did the front chin spoiler. And there's also a scale model by Revell Monogram out that says right on it, Boss Shinoda.
Carlisle Productions is proud to have Larry Shinoda join us for the first Carlisle All Ford Nationals. Larry, I'd like to thank you for joining us. You helped make our show above and beyond all others.
Well, and I've always enjoyed coming to Carlisle and seeing my friends at Carlisle Productions.
All right, thank you very much.
From the 60s into the 90s and beyond, the Mustang will always be a boss automobile. Before it's a car, it's a concept. From the minds of Ford's car design artists come these one-of-a-kind dream machines.
I have just about everything I need to celebrate the holidays, but I'm cruising for one more must-have item, a gift card from Carlisle Events. Spend your gift card just about anywhere on the fairgrounds next summer on things like food, merchandise, and more. Purchase one online at carlisleevents.com, and Merry Christmas from all of us at Carlisle Events.
You've made it fast. You know it's beautiful. So what do you do with it? You take it to the races. Going head-to-head in a pair of matching R-model Mustangs. In the Carlisle car, Mr. Bruce Larson. In the plain white, Mr. Dick Brannon. Right after the match, back at the fairgrounds, we'll get to see some of Ford's finest historical race cars and have a talk with Mr. Brannon himself. Carlisle Productions was proud to welcome Mr. Dick Brannon, seen here signing autographs for his fans, to this year's All Ford Nationals.
World famous racer of Ford's back in the 60s, and I'm sure from there on. Dick, it's very much my pleasure to meet you. What happened in the 60s and really how things have changed over the years, and you've been around to do it all. As a matter of fact, I believe these were one of the very earliest factory efforts by Ford in drag racing.
That's absolutely right, Chip. This car behind us was one of our first attempts to get into the real, true high-performance business with a true race car for the drag strip. I believe we built 7 at first, and I think we built 3 or 4 more. But it was a corporate effort at Ford Motor Company, and it sort of launched the factory-backed, shall we say, automobiles that we had out there in 1962.
You keep saying we being Ford, yet your name's up on the roof. How did that all come about?
At the time, I was very fortunate, I guess, I know, be in the right place at the right time. Having been a young fellow at the time. And I was campaigning at Ford on my own when I got a call from a guy named Dave Evans, and at the Ford division.
The big differences, I suppose, are in the technology. Back, as I recall, I raced probably in the early 60s, and I remember the old flagman. You know, I didn't even know what a Christmas tree was till I took it up again, I guess, in the 80s.
Well, when I first raced at Detroit Dragway, they had a flagman. And when the Christmas tree came along, it was controversial, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think some of the accusations that some of the people had the flagman in their pocket probably true.
Yeah.
Because I can recall going to some races on my own, and in my view, they did. You know, I get some places that maybe didn't like Fords, and even though
Sure.
everyone has a personal opinion about everything.
So in other words, if one guy jumped, it's really up to the flagman to say it. They didn't have lights there or anything. Yeah. You're disqualified, I guess.
Yeah. So the tree, the Klondike and the Christmas tree, kind of stopped all that.
Mm-hmm. Well, I guess the other technology I'm thinking of is the operation of the cars and the way they're set up. Today it's all computer, it's pneumatics. You know,
absolutely. There's no more backyard.
Yeah. You're in there and you're hammering gears and flat shifting and whatever. Today, I don't mean to put down the racing today, because certainly there's an awful lot to cutting a good light, and you know, there's reaction times and whatever that are posted today. We didn't know about them back then.
Yeah, it is. There's a lot of difference there. The technology has changed so much. Even as you say, the shifting. We had to hand do it. You know, 4-speed. And if you missed a gear, I mean, which happened often enough, you were basically out. Right now, you don't even hear of it.
That's right. That's exactly right. When the automatics, I guess, came into dominance too, because they were a lot more predictable. But now the pneumatic shifters and the clutches and whatever probably just about make it error-free.
Yeah, the link is. I tell you, there's the Ram Chargers and the Chrysler Corporation. They I think pioneered all the automatic transmission work. They did a good job of it. Those cars were tough to beat with an automatic, and we just didn't have it at the time. We started developing our C6 transmission in '65, and we got it to market in '66 for our '66 cars, and it was a good transmission, and it still is. But that Chrysler transmission was great, I think.
What's the background on the 4 cars that we're going to be walking around? It's amazing that they're all here at one place at one time. Fresh restoration just done literally 2 days ago. How did they all stay together, or did they?
Well, that's a good question, and part of the reason is I had a college kid, his name was Von Kubert, that used to kind of follow me around when I was in the area and help out. And each year when I got through with one of my cars, he'd buy it. And he was a 23-year-old, 22-year-old, 50, 60-year-old woman. You know what I mean? Just took care of the cars and ran them well. And for some reason, he ended up buying all those cars, including that record holder over there, and held them for a long time. And so he had every car in here, I think, except this one. And I think when they began to get a little popular later on, they were sold and maybe changed hands once or twice, but mainly with people that were interested in I think, making money on them or something like that.
Investors.
And then they grew in popularity. And then Mark Kuykendall, the owner of the cars today, he says he's in it, and I appreciate it too, for as a Ford enthusiast and as a supporter of that era. And he's restored these cars. I mean, down to Donald Allen, the guy from Clarksville, Georgia, has been doing all the work. And the work is incredible. If we do have a chance to use the cameras to maybe look inside the hoods or so on, or even the interiors, they're just incredible.
I think we have to do that. I know Mark really went through a lot to get these cars here. Again, last minute, but when you look at the cars, they don't look like last minute. I mean, they worked their tails off for the last weeks, and they are absolutely, probably as good or better than when they came off the showroom floor.
I think they're probably better. They have every, and the detail work. For example, this car has a brand new old stock interior in it, just as they were, and they found it at some Ford dealer for, I don't know how much they paid, but, you know, some of that stuff is brand new even.
They couldn't have found its way into a more significant car.
Yeah, it's not been redone.
Right. And I know Mark is an enthusiast. He had Sox and Martin car here a couple years ago, and it went to the track. It's you know, he loves the cars. Matter of fact, he talked about taking these out last night to the track. Almost happy he didn't.
Yeah, we discussed it and decided, well, it probably wouldn't be the thing to do.
They're so fresh.
Yeah, they're fresh. We haven't had time to do anything with them, even run them down at all. So.
Okay, well maybe we ought to take a look at all four of them, and you can give me a little enlightening. Hey Dick, we might as well start here. First factory lightweight car ever built. Let's tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, these cars were the first true effort that the Ford division went forth with in this. I think it was we started in maybe. I think they approved this thing around late May, early June of '62. The cars were supposed to be finished in about 6 weeks, and we didn't actually get them till August. So therefore, there was no real race history with these cars because we built them for the Summer Nationals in Indianapolis, and because we didn't build enough of them, we weren't really qualified in the class that we wanted to be in. So these cars, after the Indy race, well, everyone usually figures that that's the end of the year for the current year model.
Sure.
And the 63s were being introduced, so we channeled all our efforts into the 63 cars. But this car was built, if we had had this car earlier in the year, we'd have had a real automobile to compete with, because we didn't. I was racing a one just like this, a heavier model. This car, for example, it's got thinner glass. We figured if the glass was half the thickness, it's half the weight.
Sure.
You know, it's got fiberglass deck lid, fenders. It's got a fiberglass hood. It's got aluminum inner panels here. It's all aluminum here. Rare to find, and we didn't build any more of those with aluminum in there, but these cars were built with aluminum. Aluminum brake drums, aluminum bumper brackets. Has aluminum front bumper, and this front bumper is chromed. And this car was probably more elaborate than any we built outside of maybe some of the Mustangs.
Wow.
It's obviously 1963 and a half fastback. This is the first year we had the 427, and this car was actually constructed in the Ford division's experimental garage over there in Dearborn because we, at the time, were unable to actually get a car. They weren't in production. And so we built this car inside the experimental garage, and we had a lot of the components from the leftover from the 62 car we used on this car just to move it along and get going. And this car ended up being one of the finest cars I've ever had. It's a little different in that it has a different color interior in it than the regular production cars. They're red, and this one's got a beige interior.
It's like light seats.
Yes, it has lightweight seats. Take a look inside there with your camera if you want to. This car's actually had very little work done to it as far as restoration is concerned. But the obvious differences for the average viewer just to look inside the seats are different. Since this car came with a bench seat back in back when they were introduced. Took this car to a lot of races. It did extremely well. Set the NHRA record with it at York, Pennsylvania. I believe it was in maybe May or June of '63. First Ford to ever hold a super stock record. And I think the company's real proud of it. I know I was. And all my team, you know how the teams are, you got most of the volunteers. I know they were awful happy with it.
Looks like you got a lot of changes under the hood, too.
Yeah, we got a lot of, this car had a lot done to it. But as time went on, we could see that we needed to move toward lighter cars. I mean, Chrysler could come forth with some small-looking cars, and this was a large, heavy car. It's light and as good as we could get it. This car here, obviously one of my favorites. This was a real effort to really get into it again. Spent a lot of time building these cars. Built these cars over at Dearborn Steel, the first 11 cars. Well, maybe about the first 15 of them, maybe. But the original 11 cars were built at Dearborn Steel, and this was the first one we had out of there. And I actually had this car maybe about a month before we actually got going with the other cars. We were fooling around with it, testing it, and playing with it.
You produced 100 of these altogether, or thereabouts?
Well, we thought we could get away with building about 10 of them, like we did some of the others, but the rules changed, and they had to go back and build the rest for a total of 100, indeed. And all the other cars were white versus these original cars, which were this color. These were actually team cars. By this time, everyone started to understand that we were a Ford
Serious.
team.
You were
A
serious.
little more than just a little more than just a few guys racing. They looked like a whole corporate effort by this time.
I can't help but comment on the quality of the restoration as we look at this car and look at all 4 of them. It's just astounding.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's probably as new as when you pulled it into the shop to start your modifications.
It is.
Might as well take a look at the Falcon.
Well, now the Falcon, that's a whole different story. That's a very interesting story. As we competed at the Winter Nationals, we could see even this wasn't going to do the job in the coming season, maybe the following year. So we decided that maybe we wanted a Mustang, and the Mustangs weren't out yet. They were to be shortly introduced. So we tried to get ourselves a Mustang for our department, but we were unable to get one as all the components for Mustangs were being used up in production. So the best thing we could do was get a Falcon, which was fine because the platform on this car is identical to a Mustang. We felt like if we could develop this car and get an operational vehicle that we could compete with, then the transition to a Mustang would be just simple.
Okay.
The original effort to try to get into a smaller, compact, lighter car, which today, by today's standards, looks a little large, doesn't it?
Oh, I don't know. It looks just right to me. It's a pleasure. We just certainly enjoyed having you here. You've been a real terrific guest.
Thank you.
Surely never to be seen under one roof again, this collection of classic Ford race cars. Included in the collection were the 1966 Mustang Bat Car, a 1957 NASCAR number 40, and the 1963 Mercury NASCAR. It's award time here at Carlisle, and everybody gets a chance to win, even the youngsters. The little ones with their pedal cars, or the older kids with their model kits. First celebrity pick was Mr. Frank Hershey, picked a 77 Ford Mustang owned by Ronald Gall. Larry Shinoda chose the 69 Ford Boss 302 owned by Paul Sandy Jr. Chip Miller picked a 64 Fairlane owned by Mark Troy Jr. Bill Miller chose a 64 Ford Galaxy 500 owned by Melvin Moyer. Dick Brannon picked a 37 Street Rod owned by Dick Mitchell. Other award winners were Frank W. Solar in a 63 Ford Falcon convertible, Roy Kelb in a 65 Ford Falcon Ranchero, Forrest Hoffman in a 59 Edsel Corsair, Robert Black in a 67 Ford Fairlane, Paul Teixeira in a 70 Ford Torino CJ, Leslie Roth in a 67 Mercury Cougar XR7, and Chad Mitchell in a 65 Mercury Comet. William Earlwine in a Mercury Comet Ciel.
We draw 5 numbers out. The very first ticket that we draw out of there is the winner. But if the winner's not here, maybe number 2 is going to be the winner. You get a 10-minute opportunity because this goes out through the whole fairgrounds, and some of the people are vendors and some of them are still at their booth or whatever. And it goes out over the entire fairground so everybody gets a chance to hear it. You get 10 minutes to come up and claim the car.
6, 5, 4, 3, 2, Mr. Hershey, it's your turn.
Now you got to hear, his name is Franklin Q. Hershey. Now what do you think that Q stands for? I just had to find out a little bit ago. Quick. Somebody new out there, absolutely. It's quick. And are you going to be quick at pulling that ticket today?
What's that?
Are you going to be quick at pulling that ticket today?
I'll even sign it for us.
Oh, yeah. He'll even sign it for you.
There you go. Go ahead, wherever you want to go. Just wiggle right in there, Mr. Hershey.
Drum roll.
Now and the winner is...
Come on, Bill.
Everybody's tense. Huh? I'd love to do this.
0.
0.
Everybody's in.
3.
Everybody's in.
8. 7. 2. 4. Was that a scream of pain or was that a winner?
Mr. Hershey, the drums have started. You got to do it again.
I don't think so, Frank. And ticket number 2 is
0, 2, 1, 1, 6, 1. Yes? No? Maybe?
Chip. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Here comes somebody. Now, should this be a winner, is it number 1 or number 2? It's ticket number 2. 021161. The sweat will now begin. Come on up here.
There's the food out there you don't want to take it home with us, so just relax and enjoy yourself a little. Okay, now, he hasn't won yet.
This gentleman is Marion Davis. Jeff Davis, he's from Marion Center, Pennsylvania. He's got a lovely lady up here that's also sweating with him. This is Lisa. And their little boy, Evan.
Oh, please, God.
You're married, you have children?
Uh-oh, an imposter.
Get the security, get this guy out of here. You couldn't even wake up Evan for that one. My goodness, he's a sound sleeper. How long?
We haven't won it till we won it.
They haven't won it till they won it, they said. 30 seconds. How's the hearts doing, guys? Are they?
20 seconds.
What's that?
She gets to sit the driver's seat first.
Well, you girls stick together, don't you? Come here, come here. Countdown, countdown. 5? Tell me 5. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Winner!
I have just about everything I need to celebrate the holidays, but I'm cruising for one more must-have item. A 2023 season pass for all the Carlisle car shows. It's the perfect gift. Buy yours before January 3rd and save 20% off the full price. Purchase yours online at carlisleevents.com. And Merry Christmas from all of us at Carlisle Events.